No intro, you know what we're here for. Let's start by taking a closer look at the brand new xTool SafetyPro AP2. To help with testing, I'm going to bring along my handy dandy airspeed gauge and air quality monitor. As far as unboxing goes, it's really simple. There's not much to it. The AP2 is hefty, but very manageable to lift up and move around as one person. It comes with all the filters installed inside the unit already, but please remember to take the plastic bags off before using it. When reinstalling, make sure to start with filter number 5 at the bottom and work your way up to the top. Each filter is numbered so you don't have to worry about going out of order. Here's a side-by-side comparison to the original xTool smoke purifier and a look at the filter stack included with each. The AP2 is substantially larger and contains 2 more filters than the original. The AP2 filters are also a much nicer quality, opting for a plastic frame instead of the cardboard. Let's start with the F1 Ultra. Connecting the AP2 to the F1 Ultra is super simple, and to take advantage of the smart features that are enabled, I plug in the Bluetooth connector. Once you turn both machines on, the Bluetooth connection is automatic and you'll see the AP2 listed in Creative Space. If you click on the device and go down to Accessory Information, this is where you get to see all the good stuff. You can set the airflow level from 1 to 4 or keep it set to auto like I have here. Auto will automatically scale the airflow level depending on what you're working on. Below that, we see the percentage of life left in each one of our filters. This is an amazing feature because there won't be any guesswork about when it's time to replace your specific filters. For our first test, I'm running an engraving on these wooden coasters. Engraving wood will release a dense smoke that has a very noticeable smell. And prior to starting, we can see the air quality monitor says the air is nice and clean. After several minutes of engraving these coasters, you can see that the air quality monitor registered no changes to the air quality in our workspace. For our next test, let's engrave some black cast acrylic. Cast acrylic has a very pungent and noticeable smell when laser processing that really smacks you right in the face if your ventilation isn't good. Again, using the AP2, the air quality monitor barely registers any changes and I can't smell the acrylic at all. And here's an example of how nasty those exhaust fumes are for your health. I put the monitor directly inside the F1 Ultra and watch how fast it goes from good to severe and back to good when I remove it and place it right next to the AP2. Very impressive. For our next test, I want to throw an absolute haymaker at the AP2 by laser engraving and laser cutting some leather key fobs on my xTool P2. Now, if you've never laser engraved or laser cut leather before, I'll tell you this, it smells absolutely terrible and it generates a lot of particulate matter. And on top of that, the bed space for the P2 is much larger than the F1 Ultra, so we'll get a chance to see how the AP2 handles that extra volume of air. Before we get started, here's the air quality baseline in my workshop right next to my P2. 10 minutes into the job, let's get a reading. 20 minutes into the job, again, looking good, not much has changed. Just finished running the 30-minute job and we can see some elevation in the particulate matter level, but still in the normal air quality range, which is great. I can smell some of the burnt leather, but that's usually the case no matter what kind of exhaust system I'm using. If you're interested in a free SVG download of this leather key fob pattern, this is what you need to do. Sign up for my newsletter, The Laser Dispatch, and wait a minute or two for your welcome email. Inside that email, you'll find a link to download it. It's my own original pattern, but feel free to add your engraving, cut them out, and sell them to your customers. Link in the description below. All right, back to our review. Well, that was fun. Now, Let's take a look at the little guy. This is the IF2 Inline Fan. Here's a quick look at the main parts of the package here. This is the fan. And it's this interesting little cube design. I've never seen anything like this for an inline fan for a laser before. And it has two fans in here. So there's one right here you can touch. And then there's another fan on the inside of this plastic grate here. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera there. So this is a two-fan system to get that extra pull that it's discussing in the promo materials. Now, as far as the adapters go, since this fan can work with every model xTool laser that's already out there, they send you a couple different combinations of adapters that you're going to need to hook it up to the different lasers. So, for example, this piece here pops right onto the back and locks on. And then like this one here is for the xTool P2, and it kind of just pressure fits on like that. And then you connect your hose on here. Here's the manual pad. This thing's pretty hefty. It feels like a brick almost. And it has the power switch up and down as far as the fan speed. It has 4 levels of fan speed, and then it has the automatic button. So when you have it in auto mode, Creative Space will determine how much power and fan speed the project you're working on requires, and it'll adjust the speed depending on that. And then here's a look at the exhaust hose here. If you already have an xTool product, you're very familiar with this harder plastic hose that they have, and these connect right on the edge with a pressure fit, just like that. And then this extends out of your workspace. All right, let's get to some testing. First thing I want to do is run some airspeed tests at the end of the exhaust hose using this airflow monitor. I'm not particularly concerned with the number on the screen being accurate. I'm more interested in using it as a scale. This setup, the air moves faster than the other setup, that kind of thing. So let's get a baseline by first running the stock fan as it would normally with the stock exhaust hose just routed out the end of my garage. Let's see how fast the air is moving. For our second test, we're going to keep the stock fan on and running as normal, and we're also going to run the new inline fan at max power. Let's see what the airspeed is there. For our next reading, I'm going to turn the fan off in Creative Space so it doesn't run when we're running a job, and keep the inline fan on max power. And for our final test, I'm going to physically remove the stock fan that's inside of this unit so it opens up that space, and we're going to run the inline fan at max power and see what kind of difference it makes. For our second test with the IF2, I want to do what I call a smoke evacuation test. Once the job is complete, I'll wait 5 to 10 seconds and then open the lid. A sign that your exhaust system is good is there should be no smoke lingering in the laser bed when you open the lid. I'm also performing this test in the far bottom right corner of the bed, which is the furthest point from the exhaust fan. First test, the stock fan without the IF2. You can definitely notice some smoke lingering when the job is complete and I open the lid. Second test, the stock fan is on and the IF2 is on with max power. Excellent evacuation there. There's no smoke when I open the lid. Third test, the stock fan is removed entirely and the IF2 is on max power. Again, great result. There is no smoke present when I open the lid. As far as noise levels go, here's a decibel test I recorded standing about 2 feet away from the fan. All right, that was a lot of rapid fire information, so let's put all the pieces together and wrap things up. Starting with the IF2 Inline Fan, since it's the most straightforward. In case you weren't aware, when you engrave or cut materials with your laser, you're generating a lot of nasty fumes and particulate matter, smoke, gases, and all of that stuff needs to be quickly removed from your work area for your own health. The problem with a lot of the smaller desktop lasers like the P2 or S1 is that they ship with these tiny built-in exhaust fans that are mostly inadequate for removing smoke and fumes. They're just not built for it. They're glorified computer fans. So in comes the new SafetyPro IF2. This high RPM, high pressure dual fan unit was specifically engineered for removing laser exhaust. Now, for my pros of the IF2. Number one, not having to worry about buying reducers and different size ductwork. I've been using the AC Infinity Cloudline fans with my P2 for a while now, and it's kind of a pain having to buy 3D printed adapters and whatnot just to get it connected. With the IF2, the exhaust port, the fan, and the ductwork are all the same diameter, which simplifies connections and greatly helps with airflow. I can also easily connect my IF2 to my S1 and F1 Ultra without having to go out and buy 2 more adapters. Everything I need is included in one package. Number 2, great suction power for the size of the fan. I purposely used the P2 for testing since it's the largest bed space and it evacuated the smoke and fumes very nicely. The IF2 has a surprisingly high pressure rating for a fan of its size, and when it comes to exhausting smoke and fumes, a high pressure fan is going to be preferable to a low pressure fan like the ones that we're used to using. That topic should be its own video. I'll probably do that at some point. Anyways, if it can handle exhausting the P2 or P2S, it will have no problem at all handling the smaller lasers like the S1, F1 Ultra, and M1 Ultra. Number 3, it's easy to connect and move everything around and store it away. Moving around inline fans and flexible ductwork can be annoying, so I'm appreciating how compact the IF2 unit size is and how easy it is to connect and disconnect from laser sources. It just saves a lot of time. Now for my cons. Number 1, it's a little bit louder than what I'm used to with the Cloudline fans. The closest thing I can think of is it sounds like running a vacuum cleaner on your kitchen floor. Apparently there's a quiet mode you can enable in Creative Space, but I haven't tried that out yet. And number 2, the smart mode features aren't compatible with my P2. This is an important point. You can only use the smart mode functionality with Bluetooth compatible lasers like the P2S, the F1 Ultra, M1 Ultra, and the S1. It's not the end of the world since I'm used to using third-party fans that I leave on the whole time anyway, but it's something to consider if you're buying to use with one of the older model lasers like the original P2 or the F1. Now let's talk about the AP2. I'd like to set the stage by saying I have a pretty extensive background using air purifiers. I currently own 3, the FilterBox Compact, a PureX unit, the original xTool smoke purifier, and now the AP2. So I guess I actually own 4. I got started using air purifiers because when I rented my own workshop many years ago, I wasn't allowed to exhaust outside. So I needed a way to deal with that issue, and voila, air purifiers. A laser air purifier works pretty much the same way the air purifier in your house does. It takes the exhaust generated from your laser processing, pulls it through a series of filters, and shoots it back out of the machine as clean air, which can either be recirculated in the room or exhausted outside. Most purifiers come with a 3-stage filter system, a pre-filter to catch large particles and debris, a HEPA filter to catch the smaller particles that pass through the first stage, and finally a carbon filter to trap VOCs, gases, and odors. My filter box and my PureX are both 3-stage filters. The original xTool unit itself is also a 3-stage filter system. xTool decided that 3 stages wasn't enough and added 3 more filter stages on top of that for the AP2, and I'm here for it. Before the pre-filter, they added what they're calling the cyclone, which sounds awesome, and what that does is it helps to trap the largest particles in your exhaust. This layer is designed to be washed, which is smart because the less particles that are hitting the consumable filter layers, the longer those filters are going to last. Then after the activated carbon stage, they added another carbon/HEPA filter, and then finally an ultra HEPA filter to seal the deal. Now, for my pros and cons after 2 weeks of testing with the AP2. Starting with the pros. Number one, I love the build quality of the unit. It's very attractive looking from the outside. Also, the build quality of the filters feel good. They all fit tightly together. This is crucial when it comes to proper air filtration because if they don't fit together snug, the air will leak out. That's something that I hate about my Purex. It costs 3 times as much as the AP2 and it has air leaks everywhere. And I'm also really loving the magnetic door. It pops on and off really easily and really adds to the aesthetic. Number two, being able to check the lifespan of each filter individually whenever I want in creative space. There's nothing worse than relying on a filtration system like this and not being able to know how much time you have left before you need to order new filters. It's the worst kind of surprise. So being able to easily check the levels, you can stay on top of it and make sure you don't get yourself in a bind. And number three, how well it handled tough scenarios like engraving acrylic and laser cutting leather on a larger unit like the P2. I talked about it in the testing portion of the video, but some materials are smokier and stinkier than others. The air quality stayed firmly within a normal range while exhausting back into my workspace, even after running jobs that were over a half-hour long. I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't smell anything at all. There was a faint odor when I got towards the end of my cutting stage, but that's the case when I use even my more expensive filter units. Now the cons. The only real con I can think of right now is something that's going to apply to any air purifier system you want to buy, and that's the reoccurring cost of replacement filters. The filters are consumable and they will run out at some point, and that's usually determined by how much you run the unit. Thankfully, the cost of replacement filters is very reasonable, so that's a major plus. For example, all the filters together in the AP2 unit cost less than 1 filter replacement on my filter box. And the second con, same with the IF2, if you don't have a laser that is Bluetooth compatible, you can't take advantage of the smart features. In my specific case, if I wanted to continue using it with the P2, I won't be able to check the filter lifespan in creative space. It would make it tougher to decide when I need to replace each filter or if I should just replace all the filters at once instead of guessing. To get the maximum benefit out of the AP2, I would need to upgrade my P2 to a P2S. All right, let's wrap this up with some common scenarios and which unit would be the best fit. Scenario number one, you have no issues exhausting your fumes outside. For example, you don't have neighbors close by or anyone that would complain. In that case, you should choose the IF2. Exhausting your fumes outside is always the best option, and buying the IF2 is a one-time cost since there's no filters to replace. Scenario number two, you have some concerns about exhausting outside. You can do it, but you have close neighbors or you need to keep it on the down low. In this case, I would choose the AP2. However, since you can still physically exhaust outside, you should connect the exhaust hose to the outlet and remove the filtered air from your workspace. It's still best practice to keep fresh air coming in and processed air going out, even if that air was filtered. I tested this out by engraving some wood and walking out to my driveway right next to the exhaust hose, and I didn't smell anything. Having a setup like that would cut down on the probability of upsetting some nosy neighbors. Scenario number three, it's not really possible for you to exhaust outside. In this scenario, the answer is going to be the AP2. For this one, I would highly suggest picking up an air quality monitor and making sure you get adequate fresh air in your space. You never want to operate a laser in a completely sealed off environment. Air is very important to the cutting and engraving process. You need air coming into the room and air going out, even if you're using a filter unit. Going forward, I plan to continue using both of these units and I'll post update videos as necessary. I'm primarily going to use the AP2 with my F1 Ultra. I might even get an adapter made and use it with my fiber laser here. I think the AP2 is perfectly suited for use with the F1 Ultra. It fits like a glove. With my S1 and P2, I'm going to use the IF2. I do a lot more cutting and heavy engraving on those machines, and I want to make sure I get all of that smoke out of my workspace. Using the IF2 for heavier work will also cut down on my need for filter replacements in the AP2. And finally, if you're interested in picking up one or both of these awesome units yourself, please check the video description below for links and all the information you need. Full disclosure, I am an xTool partner and I was paid and provided these units in return for promotion and a review. That being said, I'm promoting these products as something I'll be using myself in my own workshop, so there will be updates going forward, especially in regards to how long the filters are lasting me. And of course, if you're considering ordering, I would greatly appreciate it if you could use the link in the video description below. It will kick back a couple bucks to me, which helps me pay for everything I've got going on here and make more videos. Thanks for watching, and be sure to sign up for my newsletter, The Laser Dispatch, for more laser goodies that don't make it on this channel. See you next time.